With the PSVR2 seeing an unexpected uptick in sales in recent months, I figured now would be the perfect time to put together an overview of the headset for new owners. So, I've gone back through my videos and put together a combination of tips, tricks, and general info to help you get the most out of your new PSVR2. I've also included my original review of the system, and I'll be back in February to celebrate the PSVR2's 2-year anniversary and offer my thoughts on whether Sony's high-tech headset really lived up to the hype. For now though, I'm Christopher, this is the Nerd Corner, and here's your guide to getting started with PSVR2 in 2025. It doesn't have speakers. While the PSVR2 may feature some of the best optics of any consumer headset on the market when it arrives later this month, boasting a stunning 2000 by 2040 pixel resolution per eye, 110-degree field of view, and 120 Hz refresh rate, all running on OLED HDR displays, one thing it won't have is built-in audio. Unlike other consumer headsets, like the Meta Quest 2 or Pico Neo 4, the PSVR2 lacks any built-in audio, instead relying on users to provide their own headphones. Now, the PSVR2 will come with a pair of earbuds in the box. One would certainly hope so given the cost of the device. But it's likely that most players will want something with a bit more oomph to take advantage of the PS5's 3D Tempest audio engine. Luckily, gamers will be able to plug their own headphones into Sony's new headset, though for anything more than earbuds, you'll have to make sure they can fit over the PSVR2's head strap. The PS5 also supports multiple wireless headsets for players looking for wireless audio, and will of course support Sony's own Pulse wireless headphones for those who prefer to stick with the PSVR2's all-white aesthetic. You need to learn to love the wire. Another adjustment for some VR fans will be the reduced freedom of movement when playing games as a result of the PSVR2's wired connection to the PS5. While many longtime PC VR gamers, wary of the compression artifacts and latency introduced by wireless connections, would never even consider using wireless VR, for those whose introduction to virtual reality was on a Meta Quest or Pico headset, the idea of tethered VR will be a whole new concept. The PSVR2 is a powerful headset, packed with some of the latest features in consumer VR, and pushing all of those pixels is going to require that hardline to the PS5. Luckily, unlike the original PSVR, which required users to connect a bulky breakout box and set up the PlayStation camera, the PSVR2 only requires a single USB-C cable connected to the PS5. The cable is roughly 4.4 meters, or just about 14 feet, which could prove to be limiting in some room-scale titles. While gamers will be able to extend the reach of their PSVR2 by using a USB-C adapter, it's still unclear which one gamers should be looking for. I plan on testing that out as soon as mine arrives. As far as the possibility of a wireless PSVR2 in the future, that remains to be seen. While the PSVR2's USB-C cable can, with some effort, be detached, it's unclear whether this hints at support for a wireless adapter in the future, or is just meant to ensure that having your cat chew through the PSVR2 cable doesn't mean your pricey headset is suddenly DOA. PSVR2 will automatically map your room. One unique feature of the PSVR2 is that, unlike headsets like the Meta Quest that require users to map out the objects in their play space before hopping into a game, the device will automatically scan the room and map out the play space in seconds. Not only will this save players time, letting them hop right into the action instead of fiddling around with controllers as they attempt to outline the walls and objects in their room, but it should help prevent any unexpected run-ins with furniture while dodging dinos in Horizon Call of the Mountain. Gamers won't be limited by the built-in room scanning though. Once the PSVR2 has mapped out an area, players can use the controllers to edit the floor height and reshape the play space boundaries, expanding or shrinking them as necessary before choosing whether to play in seated, standing, or room scale mode. Much like on Meta and Pico headsets, the PSVR2 will also project a grid in front of users as they reach the edge of their play space and warn them if they step beyond the boundaries they've established. Not every PSVR game will work on PSVR2. One unfortunate fact about the PSVR2 that's sure to sting for gamers who were all in on Sony's first entry into the world of virtual reality is that the headset won't be backwards compatible with many existing PSVR games. For gamers who were eager to dive into acclaimed PSVR titles like the cinematic crime caper Blood and Truth and the charming and colorful Astrobot Rescue Mission, or hoping to explore the mountains of wildly creative, user-generated content in Media Molecule's game creation system Dreams, this is sure to be a bit of a disappointment. That's not to say all original PSVR games won't work with the new headset, though. Even though there isn't universal backwards compatibility for existing PSVR games, several developers have taken it upon themselves to update their titles to work with Sony's new, high-tech headset. Support for older titles remains limited, however, which means PlayStation gamers with a hefty backlog of beloved PSVR games may want to hold on to their aging hardware for just a bit longer. And even though several popular PSVR games will work with the PSVR2, this comes with a sizable and sometimes pricey caveat, which brings us to our next entry. Not every upgrade will be free. While some of the most popular games from the original PSVR, like Cloudhead Games' frantic rhythm shooter Pistol Whip and Resolution Games' addictive card-based RPG Demeo, will receive a free upgrade to work with PSVR2, fans of some other titles will have to open their wallet before revisiting their favorites on the new hardware. Since backwards compatibility doesn't occur at a system level, and instead has to be implemented by developers on a game-by-game basis, different titles are taking different approaches when it comes to charging for PSVR2 upgrades. Some developers have chosen to charge only a small upgrade fee to gamers looking to play some of their favorite PSVR titles on the new hardware. Enhanced Games is one developer taking this approach, with their acclaimed VR titles Tetris Effect and Res Infinite each offering a PSVR2 upgrade for those willing to shell out $10. For other popular games, though, like Polyarch's adorable VR platformer Moss and its sequel, players will have to purchase a brand new copy of the game before they can enjoy it on the PSVR2. You can control games with your eyes. One of the most advanced features of the PSVR2, and one that no doubt has many gamers' minds racing with ideas for how it could be used, is the headset's built-in eye tracking. The PSVR2 uses top-of-the-line Tobii eye tracking to track players' gaze, which has been the go-to choice for gamers in the flight simulator community for years due to its precise, high-quality eye and head tracking. Not only will the pupil-peeping tech open up new possibilities for both controls and gameplay, but it should also allow for more realistic and natural interactions with other users in social VR applications. While many developers have kept the details about if and how they'll be using the PSVR2's eye tracking features in their upcoming titles close to the chest, gamers have already gotten a glimpse of some innovative and occasionally bone-chilling uses of the technology. Regardless of whether developers choose to use the PSVR2's built-in eye tracking to introduce new gameplay features, every title should be able to take advantage of the foveated rendering allowed by the PSVR2. By tracking where players are looking, developers can focus their resources on rendering only that area at the highest detail level, while dropping down the quality in the periphery. Foveated rendering has already been used to boost performance in some titles for the MetaQuest Pro, which sports similar eye tracking tech, and should help developers use the powerful PS5 to deliver some truly stunning visuals. Next-gen haptics. One of the biggest selling points of the PS5 for many gamers was the console's DualSense controller, which offers haptic feedback that goes far beyond the standard rumble features that gamers have grown accustomed to. The controller's powerful motors and adaptive triggers lets players feel the kick from an in-game rifle or the tension in a tightly drawn bowstring, and can really help increase immersion in games. This technology is now being put to use to make the worlds of PSVR2 games feel more lifelike than ever, with the PSVR2 Sense controllers featuring the same advanced haptic feedback and adaptive triggers as their console counterparts. These new features should allow developers to deliver gameplay experiences on PSVR2 that feel more lifelike and tactile than is currently possible with traditional VR controllers. The PlayStation VR2 Sense controllers also include advanced finger touch detection, making it possible to precisely map and replicate players' finger placement in-game in supported titles. In addition to the advanced haptics in the controllers, the PSVR2 also features a vibration motor built directly into the headset that can deliver a slight shake to players' heads. While this feature may sound superfluous and, frankly, a little bit silly, it has the possibility to open the door to some interesting gameplay uses, and could even potentially reduce motion sickness for players. You can enjoy movies and games on the big screen. While the main appeal of the PSVR2 is undoubtedly the ability to play the latest and greatest VR titles, that's not the only thing this next-gen headset can be used for. In addition to transporting players into fully rendered VR worlds, the PSVR2 also lets players play traditional games or watch their favorite shows on a massive virtual screen. Like the original PSVR, the PSVR2 will have a cinematic mode that lets users enjoy flat-screen content on the headset's gorgeous displays. When using cinematic mode, PSVR2 users can see games and movies projected in 1080p HDR on the virtual screen, with 24Hz support ensuring that movies will look identical to their big screen counterparts. And when players feel like tackling some of their non-VR backlog, PSVR2's cinematic mode will also support up to 120Hz refresh rate, ensuring lightning-fast response times even when playing fast-paced flat-screen titles. Some of the best VR games are already there. Even with all of the impressive technology built into its sleek and stylish form factor, the PSVR2 wouldn't be much use to gamers if there weren't some great games to play on the headset. Luckily, not only are brand new titles like Horizon Call of the Mountain and the Dark Picture Switchback making their way to Sony's new headset, but the PSVR2 will also be home to some of the biggest titles in VR, though, sadly, no Half-Life Alyx. While players may not yet be able to step into the shoes of Eli Vance's combine-blasting daughter Alyx on PSVR2, they'll be able to take their pick from some of the best of what VR has to offer. From the galaxy-hopping adventures of No Man's Sky, to the zombie-filled streets of The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Part 1 and 2, to the booty-shaking VR phenomenon that is Beat Game's blockbusting rhythm game Beat Saber. The PSVR2 is the perfect way for gamers new to VR to experience some of the incredible titles that helped establish virtual reality as a viable medium for gaming in the first place. Add in some incredible-looking PC ports, like developer Better Than Life's Kayak VR Mirage, and a dash of charming, beautiful indie titles, like Before Your Eyes and The Last Clockwinder, and the PSVR2 looks set to have a little something for every type of gamer. Number 6. Change your power settings. I'm a big fan of the PSVR2 Sense controllers. Not only are they some of the most comfortable VR controllers I've used to date, but the haptic feedback on the triggers is a great addition and something I'd like to be standard on VR controllers going forward. One thing I don't like, though, is the fact that they're rechargeable rather than using batteries. This can unfortunately leave you running out of juice when you're mid-game. One way you can avoid this is by going into the PS5's power settings and turning on the power saving feature. Available under the system settings, this will let you set a power-off timer for both your PSVR2 controllers and your headset, saving the battery on your controllers and the screen on your PSVR2. It's quick, easy, and should give you enough power to game just a little bit longer. Number 5. Turn on enhanced tracking. Another way to make sure you're getting the most out of your PSVR2 is to turn on enhanced tracking. While the headset's inside-out tracking usually does a great job and is a huge improvement from the camera-based system on the original PSVR, depending on lighting conditions, it can sometimes have issues. Available under the PSVR2's Quick Settings menu, keep scrolling down until you see the Tracking Support option under the Other category. Once activated, a border will appear around your TV screen that'll make it easier for the PSVR2 to recognize its position and hopefully eliminate any tracking problems you may have. Number 4. Enable HDR and 120Hz. One of the best features of the PSVR2 is the ability to enjoy your flat screen backlog at up to 120 frames per second on the OLED displays. When you initially go into the PSVR2 settings, though, there's a good chance you'll see these features grayed out. Luckily, there's a quick fix for this that'll have you enjoying your flat screen titles in no time. you'll want to go into the screen and video settings for the PS5, and then scroll down until you see the 120Hz output option. For some reason, you have to switch this to off before you can enable it on the PSVR2. I did the same thing with HDR just to be safe. Once you've done this, you can activate both features on the headset and then turn them back on for non-VR games and movies. Number 3. Turn on voice controls. I'm a bit of a sucker for voice controls. It's how I control my phone when I'm out driving, and how I run everything from my lights to my TV when I get back home. So I was pleasantly surprised when I found out that the PS5 has a voice control feature in testing right now. Available under the voice command section in the settings menu, this will let you control several of the functions of your PS5 and PSVR2 using just your voice. You can set it up to listen for the "Hey PlayStation" command, and then change options for the speed and volume of the PlayStation Assistant, as well as setting the response timeout. Once turned on, the voice command feature will let you launch games and apps from your PSVR2 without having to fiddle with buttons. All you have to do is talk. "Hey PlayStation, open Netflix."
Okay.
Number 2. Free up your hands. We're done with settings menus and on to 2 tips that may seem a bit silly, but can really help improve your time with the PSVR2. The first tip takes advantage of the PSVR2 Sense controller's unique shape to let you quickly and easily free up your hands when you're in the middle of a game. Now, while no one wants to stop exploring the galaxy just to take a call, sometimes you've just got to do it. Rather than having to loosen wrist straps and set your controllers to the side in order to do anything with your hands, all you have to do is simply let go of the Sense controllers and let them slide back down your wrist. Now you can easily grab a drink, or even subscribe to some great VR YouTube channels, and then be able to quickly hop back into the game, all without missing a beat. Number 1. Keep your cable in place. While getting used to the PSVR2's wired connection shouldn't take most players too long, having that cable drooping down from the back of your head can definitely add a little bit of extra weight. Okay, maybe that example is slightly exaggerated. One simple solution I found to keep myself from getting too tied up is to just take a few inches of the PSVR2's cord and pull it through a belt loop. Make sure that you give yourself a little bit of slack so that your head can still move freely, but now you won't have a cord weighing you down as you play your favorite games. Another option that will give you a bit more of a secure hold is to use a Velcro zip tie. I'd already added one of these on my PSVR2 to make it easier to wrap the cable up when I wasn't using it, and it turns out that it also works perfectly for helping to keep your cord from dragging while playing. We need to talk about this. Hi, I'm Christopher, and welcome back to the Nerd Corner. I know it's been a while since you've last seen me. I had some things going on in my personal life, so I appreciate your patience while you waited for the next video. In the meantime, I've been playing a lot of the PSVR2, and wanted to kind of share my thoughts about 2 months on with the system so far. The good, the bad, the in-between, so I really appreciate you tuning in. If you like the video, hit that like button, and it really helps me out if you hit the subscribe button. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So I've had the PSVR2 for just about 2 months now, and I've been pretty happy with the system overall. I love the form factor. I was coming from a Quest 2 that I had heavily modified. It was a FrankenQuest and then some. Had my battery pack, the deluxe audio strap, all held together with a bunch of 3D printed parts for microphones, all of that. So it was comfortable, but it was unwieldy. So moving to the Halo design on the PSVR2, that was huge. It was a little bit of an adjustment for me. I have a giant head, as you can see. And so getting the fit just right can be a little bit of a struggle sometimes. That said, when I get it working perfectly, it's incredibly comfortable. Now, that comes with one caveat. The PSVR2 does have the built-in headphones, which they work in a pinch. You know, if you want to just listen to something, you don't need the crystal clear audio. If I'm hopping into a game for a few minutes, it works fine. What I prefer to use, and what I used on my Quest, was I have my Arctis 7 headphones, which are great. It's a wireless connection to the PS5. That's typically how I play my flat screen games, and I've been happy with it overall. The issue that I have with the PSVR2 is to get it fitting on my head, and especially to get that sweet spot, which we will touch on later. When I get it on there, the headphones can be uncomfortable. If I loosen them all the way, they fit, they work, but if I'm playing for an hour or two, say I'm hopping into Resident Evil or Horizon Call of the Mountain, after a while, the weight from the head strap and the headphones gets to be a little bit painful. Minor complaint aside, generally been pretty happy with the fit overall. I could use a little bit more padding on the front, but I'm sure there'll be aftermarket accessories that can do that. One of the things I've really enjoyed about the PSVR2 is the PSVR2 Sense controllers. Now, what I did with mine, I flipped around the hand strap, so that gives you something kind of close to what you can get with a knuckle grip that you might be familiar if you use the Valve Index or any of the aftermarket accessories for something like the Quest. I find that it fits the hand really well. The rumble is not as intense as I would have liked, but it's also the trade-off you get for a wireless controller and being able to have battery life long enough to actually be able to enjoy those longer games. So there was a lot of hype about what the haptics would bring to VR in the lead up to the launch of the PSVR2. After playing around with a handful of titles, done Horizon Call of the Mountain, Resident Evil, so haven't hopped into Pavlov yet or any of the games that might take a little bit more advantage of the PSVR Sense controllers. That said, I've been happy with the haptics overall. There's definitely some room for improvement. I was hoping for a little bit more feedback, more along the lines of what you get with the DualSense controller on the PS5. But I've enjoyed it. It's nice having that little bit of extra feedback, more so than you get with current VR controllers. The biggest thing, though, is going back to the comfort. On my Quest 2, I got in the Kiwi hand straps, which are nice to be able to have my hands free, and that made those very comfortable. This, though, is just about the most comfortable VR controller I've ever used. I like the form factor. I wasn't sure what I would think about it at first. I have a little bit larger hands, which is also why I like the Duke controller and the original Xbox. I don't care what anyone says, fantastic controller. But it fits very well for me, and it's been comfortable overall. Now, beyond the form factor, the tracking on the controllers has been hit or miss. In a lot of games, I haven't really had issues. Horizon is the one that gave me the biggest problems. It was typically going over my shoulder to get out my bow and arrow, and it was very hit or miss. Sometimes it would pick it up perfectly. Sometimes I'm not sure if it was the issue of the tracking or the game, but I would be sitting there fumbling, which in the middle of a fight can be extremely annoying. That being said, it's one of the things I knew would be a trade-off with the headset, with it using inside-out tracking. In my experience so far, now I haven't been able to load up games like Beat Saber. When that comes out, I want to get my hands on it, because if there's going to be a good test for tracking, that will definitely be it. But right now, I would say it's roughly on par with the Quest 2 in my experience. Now, as I get a chance to try more games and the PSVR2's library grows, that'll let me get a better impression. But overall, I'm satisfied with it. Moving on to the displays, I absolutely love the OLED displays on the PSVR2. One of the things that I love is when you're doing the eye tracking setup, Sony knows how good those screens are, and they definitely show it off. You go from a pitch black screen to blinding white, which is a little bit uncomfortable, but it's a great showpiece for the displays on there. The HDR is not quite as bright as I was expecting, but I think that might come down more to me having unrealistic expectations of what you're going to be able to pack into such a small display there. That being said, I found so far that Gran Turismo 7 is, for me, the best showcase of the displays there. When you're going around the sunlight at different times of day, I find myself getting distracted sometimes, looking down at my car seats, just the way the light plays off it. It looks realistic, even if it's not, as I said, as bright as I would have hoped. Now, alongside the brightness, the other good thing you get with those OLED displays is pitch black, which in games like Resident Evil 8 is huge. It makes it even more terrifying than it would be otherwise. And going from the PSVR2 back to my Quest 2, it was a little bit painful going into dark areas in games, and I still have that gray glow. So that is one thing I really love about the PSVR2. One thing I don't love so much about the displays, though, is the sweet spot. By now, if you haven't used it and experienced the remarkably small sweet spot for yourself, I'm sure you've heard other people talk about it. When you get it lined up, the PSVR2 looks fantastic. Getting it to where you are actually in that small area where you get the best picture can be a hassle, can be a little bit of a pain. Adjusting to the wires wasn't as difficult as I would have thought, especially if you've seen my other videos. I'll link it up here. There are a few tips I have, including one of if you have belt loops, putting the cable in the back makes a huge difference. It sounds silly, but trust me. But getting used to the cable, like I said, has not been as difficult as I expected. I did get a cable extender. It's only 1 foot, and honestly, that is more just to make sure that if I pull on the cable, I'm not pulling my PS5 out, rather than needing any more length. The 16 feet or so that you have, I find, works fantastically, even for room scale games. Now, I don't have all of the PSVR2 launch titles that are available, but I have a nice cross-section. Have Resident Evil 8 for my horror fix because I absolutely love VR horror. It has kind of replaced movies for me as far as that genre goes. I've been diving into No Man's Sky, which I had on PC. I'd played in VR before, but that was several years ago. The game was still a little bit rough, so it's been nice going back to it and seeing it as more of a polished product. The game that has been absolutely sucking up my time, though, to my surprise, has been Gran Turismo 7. Gran Turismo 7 has turned me from somebody who would be the casual racer to the person who is now sitting there making sure I have the right tires and the right weight distribution on my car before a race. Absolutely love it. I've been going through the campaign mode. I think I've put in about 18 hours now and still having an absolute blast. Even after all that time, not quite prepared to go into the multiplayer. Got to build up my confidence a little bit. But if there was a system seller for the PSVR2 at this point, I would definitely say it's Gran Turismo. Now, if you're not a racing fan, you would probably disagree with that, and I can't blame you. The other title I spent a lot of time in is Horizon Call of the Mountain. I had Horizon Zero Dawn on the PC and got about 10 hours in, and it didn't grab me enough to finish it, so I never came back. So going into Horizon Call of the Mountain was interesting for me. I'm not really familiar with the lore. I know there are robotic dinosaurs, and it's in the far future. That's about it. Horizon Call of the Mountain is a difficult one for me because while I found the gameplay lacking in a lot of ways, the game itself is an absolutely incredible technical showpiece for the PSVR2. The environments look gorgeous, especially as somebody coming from PC VR, which is how I play most of my games. I was cautiously optimistic about what the PS5 could do, and Horizon looks absolutely beautiful in points. Makes wonderful use of the OLED displays. When you get into some of the really sunlit areas, it's absolutely gorgeous. I do have some complaints though. I'm somebody who I don't like using the quick turn. I always do smooth turn, and there is a lot of ghosting in Horizon. I got used to it after a while, but It's a little distracting when you have these gorgeous environments and the rest of the game looks so good, but if you turn, everything becomes an absolutely blurry mess. So the visuals were great, audio design in the game was fantastic. The gameplay, I was hoping for more. You know, I went in expecting a prettier version of something like The Climb, and that's pretty much what I got. The combat had slightly more depth than the initial trailers led me to believe, but still not enough that after I've rolled credits, that I would go back to it. Like I said, it's a wonderful technical showpiece for the PSVR2. If you got it in a bundle, it's great. If not, I'd say wait for it on sale. So just about 2 months on, I'm happy with the PSVR2. I wish the library was a little bit bigger, but overall, I'm happy with the hardware. I'm happy with the library based on what I've played so far. With it being Sony, there are going to be games coming. It may not be as quick as we'd like. I know I'm still waiting to play through Half-Life Alyx on those gorgeous displays. Who knows if that'll happen? That being said, it's a solid piece of hardware. Would I run out and purchase one right now? That's a little bit more of a difficult question. If you're coming from something like the Quest 2, where you're only playing mobile games, the PSVR2 is a huge improvement, night and day. It comes down to the library though. If you're a racing fan, you have Gran Turismo there. You have open world titles like No Man's Sky. You've got the Resident Evil series. So there are some great games, but the library is still fairly small. And if you are coming from something like the Quest, honestly, a lot of the PSVR2 titles that you'll see coming out are going to be ports of games already available on that system. But if you're looking for something with a little bit more graphical oomph and you're not quite ready to make the leap into PC VR, I would say definitely consider it. If your budget allows for it, it's a great piece of hardware. The library's only going to get better, so it could be a good option. Now, if you're coming from PC VR, the PSVR2 is a little bit more of a difficult choice. Just like on the Quest 2, a lot of the games that you'll see on the PSVR2 are already available on PC. And while some of the games may look better overall thanks to the OLED displays, you're also going to be dealing with a lot of compromises as far as some titles go. If you're running older hardware though, the PSVR2 could be a great option, especially if you don't feel like paying the ridiculous prices that they're charging for video cards these days. Now, if you have the 4090 system with your 64 gigs of RAM, the PSVR2 really isn't going to have a lot to offer you unless you're really interested in those exclusives. So those are my thoughts on the PSVR2. I hope you found some of that helpful, and I really do appreciate you tuning back into the Nerd Corner. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite games are, and share any tips you found to make the whole experience better. If you liked the video, hit that like button, and if you want to keep up to date with all of my latest videos, hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, your morning, your afternoon, your evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. I really do appreciate you spending a little of that time here with me in the Nerd Corner. See you soon.